All right, it's time for another episode of Unsolicited, a podcast where we talk about financial planning topics, hopefully helping you with your personal finance journey. My name's Keith Wilson. I'm a financial advisor, and here with me today, of course, is
Anthony Ruffalo, certified financial planner. I'm here to keep Keith's data on point and to keep him honest.
correct.
Let me ask you a question. What is green and has wheels? What is green and has wheels?
I don't know.
The grass. I lied about the wheels.
Gosh, that's terrible. It's horrible.
It's one of my favorite Norm Macdonald jokes.
Horrible.
This is horrible.
I know. It's a train wreck.
Can we talk about something of substance? What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about advisory fees.
Advisory fees.
I think people misunderstand advisory fees and what it covers, which is more than just management of money.
Right. So let's get into it. What's an advisory fee cover?
You can start.
I'll start. Okay. So the first, I would say, it starts at the bottom of the pyramid: financial clarity, goal setting with clients, creating a focus. I think especially in this day and age, the most important thing, or a wicked weapon that you can wield in this day and age of being bombarded with information, is clarity of focus. And yeah, it costs something to hire somebody, but to actually define mathematically what it is you're setting out to accomplish is worth its weight in gold.
I'll give you an example. Have you ever had somebody come in and just say, "Hey, I want to start investing"?
Yeah.
It's just blank. I want to start investing.
Last week.
That's great. I always ask why. And they look at me. What do you mean why? I want to make money.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly.
And then I funnel them down. Why do you want to make money? Well, maybe I could use it later. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So I'm trying to get them
Or want to buy a house.
for a goal or buy a house. Because if you're going to invest to buy a house in a mid to short term period, we're going to invest that differently than if we're going to invest for retirement. So that's what you're talking about. We help them, get really clear, zero in on a goal.
Right. So
how we can accomplish it.
And already what's happening, and this is what the layperson at home doesn't even notice, just in 1 minute, in 3 questions, Keith has done something really important. And what that is you can start to now formulate an investment strategy based on the answer to why are you investing? If you're investing for retirement, that's going to be a different set of this different risk level and different set of investments than if I'm investing for a short-term home purchase or a short-term car purchase or the purchase of a vacation house or to send a kid to college. Those goals, you're just by those 2 or 3 questions, you've already begun to now segue into investment strategy. Already, immediately. And that's just something that comes with experience, because that happens all the time. Hey, I want to invest. I want to make some money. Okay, well, let's back up. Right? You got to
zero in on the why.
Real simple. First and foremost, first value add for an advisor and what you're paying for an advisory fee is defining your goals and creating clarity and focus. We all know, like, getting what you want out of life is pretty easy. The hardest part, at least I found, the most difficult part of life is deciding what it is that I want. And a good financial advisor will help you decide what it is that you're working towards. Because that's a lot of time, like you go to a therapist's office, the old saying is somebody doesn't come in here if the person knows the problem that they coming in, the problem that the person brings in is never the problem. So second value add, investment management. So you start to advisory fees paying for investment management. Now, investment management isn't just creating a portfolio. Investment managing is selecting the right assets in the right accounts. So simple example is we would put passive ETFs or individual equities into non-qualified, non-retirement accounts because they're more tax efficient than, say, an actively managed mutual fund. An actively managed mutual fund is going to kick off capital gains distributions at the end of the year. As your income grows and as your finances get more complex, that is going to show up on your Schedule D and start causing a tax problem for you. We can be efficient with where that asset is located in a tax deferred account, if that is indeed part of your investment strategy to have actively managed funds. So that's just a very simple, hey, I think for a client, like a new client that came in, we were able to eliminate about $18,000 a year in capital gains. So 18,000, what's 18,000 times 15%? What is that? 1,800, and then half of 1,800 would 2,700. So we legitimately, that's $2,700 in tax savings that we were able to uncover by just relocating an asset, just like that.
Then, on the same subject with tax planning, tax loss harvesting, and a lot of people that are DIYers do not do this. With tax loss harvesting is the strategy of when things are down, we have a down market. We just went through a correction earlier in this year. I was looking at positions that were down that I could go ahead and harvest the loss and say, I'm going to sell that off. It sounds counterintuitive because you're selling at a lower price. But then I'm turning around and buying something else that's somewhat similar but not identical to get that growth. What did I did? I just realized that loss to offset maybe a gain that I'm going to have later on down the road. That's only in non-retirement accounts that we do this.
Correct.
Most DIYers do not do that. So to your point, I've had several times where at the end of the year, their account was much higher than it was on January 1. They get a 1099, they take it to their accountant, and the accountant looks at it and says, boy, you lost a lot of money last year because of all those losses that I harvest. And I've had CPAs call me, what'd you do with Joe here?
Yeah.
It was a good year. How did he lose money? Well, you remember that correction that we had when it went down 15%? I harvested some losses. So that's the account is higher. They made money and they had a write-off.
Yeah. So quantify that. Quantify that for the audience. What is that? So when you talk about the value of an advisor, so let's give them a hypothetical. If you were able to tax loss harvest $30,000,
exactly, it was $33,000.
Okay.
So
what does that translate to the bottom line for the client?
So he can only write off $3,000 in a year. In that year, that's what happened. The remaining $30,000 is carried over. In the next year, if I'm going to do some rebalancing, maybe I had to sell some securities at a much higher gain. Let's say it was 30 grand. Well, he's got 30 grand stored in his barn to offset that gain.
Gotcha.
So typically he would have paid on a realized gain 15% on, in this example, 30 grand in the second year, which is what, $4,500.
Okay.
So I just saved him $45. I actually saved him in year one,
right,
with the $3,000 write-off. I saved him $4,500 in year two with capital gains, something that most people would not even think of or know how to accomplish that.
And quite frankly, there's a lot of people don't know about it, and it's a lot of extra effort on the individual advisor's part.
Non-qualified accounts are far harder to manage.
There is nowhere in a manual anywhere that says that you need to do that. And quite frankly, 99.9% of clients wouldn't know if you were doing it or not on the back end. So it's one of those things, like, that needs to be a conversation I know, Matt Jarvis has a saying, like, you don't get credit for something if the client doesn't know you're doing it.
Right. Let's stick with the tax planning and how we add value there. One thing I see from time to time when somebody's doing a non-deductible contribution to an IRA, and they're going to turn around and convert that to a Roth, what I do, if I'm not already preparing their taxes, someone else is, I've seen where the tax preparer did not file a Form 8606. And that form is telling the IRS what the cost basis is on that non-deductible. And they could be taxed twice if it's not filed. So that saved, dollars in the pocket of the client.
One that I'm working on right now is a client on a sabbatical, and they're taking a sabbatical. It's a much lower income year. Every 5 years, this one particular client, they get was it 6 months? I think they get a full 6 months off. So they don't get their full salary. They get a lower amount of salary, but they do get the time off, which is super important to them. And they get to travel and do all the things. So it's a much lower income. It's going to be a much lower income year. So we're using that opportunity to do a conversion on somebody who's pretty high, somebody who's a high income person who normally wouldn't have that anywhere in their immediate horizon.
Because you all know when you do a Roth conversion, you got to pay tax on that conversion. So to your point, if the salary, that was a year to do it strategically throughout the year.
Yeah. And we've been working together for years, so we knew it was coming up.
And a lot,
but that's another value add that most people, 99% of the population, is DIY is not going to think of.
Here's another situation where I helped somebody that above managing their money, which was beneficiary IRAs. We all know now the new rules are you got to get it out in 10 years. You got to liquidate it. What I do in that situation is strategically during market downturns, like again we had earlier this year, I was taking chunks out of that beneficiary IRA. It was down. I want to get rid of this thing. So I took a chunk out and we reinvested in an individual account. When the recovery happened, it's recovering every year. If we do that periodically throughout the years, that would save them a lot in taxes because we're emptying it out quicker when it's down, but we're reinvesting to get the recovery in the other investment.
That's along the lines of in the same vein of doing a Roth conversion on a market dip or pullback.
Same idea.
Yeah.
Social Security is another one. Had a fella come in a few years ago, wanted to retire soon. He was 62, still working. He took out his Social Security, started his Social Security benefits. I said, why did you do that? Well, I thought you were supposed to at 62. I mean, that's what he literally said. Well, that's the earliest you can take it at 62, but you get a reduced amount. Yeah, I read something about that, but that's okay. He was working. He was making close to $100,000. I said, you're going to have to give it pretty much all back. And he said, well, it's too late. I've already done it. I said, no, it's not. Within the first 12 months, you can give it back and just reset yourself.
Got a mulligan.
And he got a mulligan. And he was pleased as punch because he didn't know he was going to be penalized. We did a whole Social Security optimization. He was married. He was the higher income earner. So we had to do some Social Security planning that saved, through the analysis, over his lifetime, if he lived to age 95, it was like $700,000. over his lifetime.
Yeah, that's huge.
But
I think that's a nice little value add.
that's a value add. And of course, we don't know if he's going to live to 95, but that was the math. And it really took care of his spouse by him delaying. So Social Security optimization is another huge value add that goes towards that advisory fee.
Yep. What about withdrawal strategies?
Oh, withdrawal strategies. That's a big one. Hopefully, people listen to our podcast or my YouTube channel. I'm a big preacher of preparing for retirement in 3 buckets. Tax deferred, which is your IRA 401k. Tax free, which is Roth or an HSA. And then taxable account, which is a brokerage account. Have some in each of those buckets because it's all about taxes. When it comes time to retire, hey, I got to supplement my income, maybe a pension. I got to pull some money out. So the question is, where do you pull the money from? Which one first? So we do some optimization on that. Typically, it makes sense to pull from your taxable brokerage account first, then the tax deferred, and then the tax free Roth, because you're letting that sucker grow. At the same time, hopefully, if you've prepared, and we prepared our clients for this, about 5 years before you retire, we're going to have another bucket, which is just a good cash bucket of, I would say, 3 years of income you would need, the first 3 years of income you would need in retirement. And you're pulling from that. That avoids sequence of returns risk. So the withdrawal strategies, optimizing that. Most people don't think about that. So a lot of people say, oh, well, I got a Roth that's tax free. Let me empty it first.
Yeah, I call the Roth is kind of like a wild card too, because I just had this conversation with clients yesterday that were in for a review. They've got a $2.7 million in assets and $205,000 Roth IRA account, and they have absolutely no need to touch it, and they're way under withdrawing on everything. And so here's another kind of qualitative value add. In our review, came up they had postponed travel plans because one of their relatives has cancer and they're not going to be able to travel anytime soon. But in that conversation came up was they said, we really just feel like everybody around us is doing way more, and they're traveling. They're traveling and they're taking these big fancy vacations, and we don't get to do that. And I could tell that they felt slighted. I was picking up on that. So let's drill down. My thought is, okay, well, let's what is big fancy vacation? That's a very subjective term. So I said, well, what do you mean by big fancy vacations? Like, where are they going? What are they doing? And, how much do you think that they're spending? And they kind of went back and forth. And I was really curious to see what they were going to, come back, because you never know. Could be 5,000, could be 50 or 500. I don't know what people think big fancy is. So anyway, 25,000 was the number. Like, yeah, they're probably spending about $25,000 and they're on these big fancy vacations. And I said, okay, like, well, you are well under withdrawing. I was like, you could do 2 of those and still be completely on track for retirement. So, and they just kind of looked at each other and they were like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I don't need to run.
You gave them confidence.
Yeah, I don't need. I'm like, do you want to see another one of my spreadsheets? And they both looked and they laughed because they hate spreadsheets and they hate when I get into the math. And they literally just said, we just want to know if we're going to be all. I'm like, I know that you're telling me you just want me to say you're going to be okay. I reject that. You're going to be okay, but I want you to understand why you're going to be okay, and I want you to understand the basis for the advice that I'm giving you, and I'm saying those words because I believe that people, on some level, like they want to hear you say they're going to be okay, So you know that when I
where you're getting your
when I'm
where you're getting
saying-
your figures from. And
yeah, I need you to have that basic information of Anthony is using these numbers
to formulate.
the words, you're going to be okay.
I mean, it's easy. I agree.
No, because
100%.
I think me and you are we're financial advisors, so by nature we think differently. If somebody says, like, oh yeah, you're going to be fine, you're like, well, why?
What makes you say that?
What makes you say that? Or what?
You don't, and you don't.
What's the math behind it?
You
Like,
don't
how
have
do
to
you
get.
how do you support that claim?
Yeah, you don't have to get in the weeds with it. You just say these are my assumptions, and this
Yeah.
is the path that I came to come to that decision.
He or she doesn't have to get in the weeds with you, but if they're unwilling to get in the weeds with you, I think that's a red flag.
You can say, look, I've put together this whole big plan to answer that question. I'll be happy to go over it in detail, or I can give you the executive summary of how I got to it. And that way you're showing them your willingness to go, because some engineers like to know all that.
That's fine.
Here's another one I got. I call it saving yourself from you. Mm-hmm. And I have one client in particular, every single time the market is dipping, like a normal correction, which typically happens every single year, he'll call, go to cash. And he's, go to cash. And I think with the exception of one time, I was able to talk him off the ledge. But Anthony, I'm telling you, every single dip, go to cash. And then what I did one time, this last time, which was this year, I said, look, you're paying me an advisory fee for a reason. And I told him right to his face, I said, you're paying me to save yourself from you. And then I calculated the times that we didn't go to cash, that I said, stay the course, let this thing work itself out. Mm-hmm. I calculated if you did, at that point, who knows when we would have gotten back in, but let's say a year later, what was lost? Mm-hmm. Moderate level of risk, it wasn't aggressive. So I don't have the figures in my head, it's office, but the dollars that saved him from himself.
Sure.
Talking him off the ledge.
Yep. Well, and to be fair, and also for compliance, there may be a day where he's right and he should have been in cash.
What I say to people when they want to get out, when do you want to get back in? Here's the answer: when it goes back up.
Yeah, that's perfect.
To what point? When it's back up to where it was before the dip. Well, then you just sold low and you're going to buy high. Mm-hmm. And then I would even further say, or when it begins to go up. And I said, I've played that out before too. Hey, it's starting to recover. I don't trust it. Let's wait and see. So maybe somebody is going to be right at one point. You got to be right twice, when to get out, when to get back in. Mm-hmm. And then once I show them how they're invested and it's not speculative, hey, you've got some cash already in the portfolio. You've got fixed income in the portfolio. This is how much is exposed to what you see on TV.
Do you look at life insurance contracts for people?
Yeah, I've saved a lot of life insurance contracts.
So give me an example of a value add.
So we review life insurance policies, and it's really when we saw these contracts being taken out, maybe in the 90s, when interest rates were high back then, typically universal life policies. And they are saying, well, the agent told me if I pay this premium, I'm going to be okay to age 100 or whatever.
Right.
Well, that was on a projected basis.
Is that not happening?
That's not happening. So it's running out of gas.
Does that have something to do with the interest rate going down?
Correct. So when the interest rates went down and they weren't as high as projected, their premium was not enough to sustain the policy. Thus, it was taking it from the cash value.
And let me take a guess. People didn't voluntarily start paying more premiums into the policy.
And the agent that sold it years ago is gone, either retired or whatever.
Aren't in the business anymore,
or not in the business anymore. The client gets one annual report, and it just has a bunch of numbers on there.
And to be fair, a lot of the insurance carriers do cover themselves and they do run projections. And a lot of times, if you take the time to stop and read that annual report, it'll tell you it's projected.
It's on the second page.
It's usually in there.
It's in there, but it's hard to find.
Well, I find that people just don't read.
Of course they don't. Like I said, they look at the first page and they see a bunch of numbers.
Or they just don't really understand what they're reading.
Well, that's why we have a life insurance review each year.
You do?
Oh, yes.
My goodness.
We review the policies.
This is all included in an advisory fee?
It's all included in the advisory fee.
It feels like I should be paying more.
You could. I could put you on that track.
I feel like people are just stealing from you, Keith.
No, in these particular cases.
I think a better question to ask is, what don't you do?
I don't do Windows.
What do you work on? Do you work on a Mac?
That's funny.
You like that?
I like that. I like that.
Okay,
so anyway, saving that policy, and really all we were doing is transferring the cash value to a newer, updated policy. We did the up-to-date illustrations, and without it, they were going to be without insurance.
Mm-hmm. Estate document implementation. So I had an attorney email me. Attorney sends me a letter, says, hey, we have a mutual client. We created a revocable trust and will and basic estate documents, so on and so forth. Here's how we'd like you to designate the accounts, that they have with you. And the intent is to leave it 50-50 to the children. That's it. Just that, very, very simple. In the letter, it said, please change please make the two children contingent beneficiaries and designate
the trust
as the primary beneficiary. So I wrote back and I said, why, like, if the intent is to, in this most simplest way, distribute the money directly to the adult children, why are you doing that? Like, why are we changing them to contingent? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't. So I asked the question. I haven't got the answer back. So I think I actually just caught an error, is what I think. But I don't know.
Estate planning documents. You catch these things.
Really, my point. Well, my point is I love that the attorney sent the letter and they're implementing what they actually did. And then the second part of that is the non-qualified account needs to be retitled into the name of the revocable trust. Perfect. Got it. But the actual implementation portion, second set of eyes, looking at, because sometimes attorneys make drafting mistakes. I think there was I think it was a problem with a template, honestly.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm going to learn something. I don't know.
Either way, you caught something.
Either way, there's just another layer there, just of checks and balances.
And that's estate planning, not investment planning.
Nothing to do with any of that stuff. The coordination, the implementation, and not to pat myself on the back, but the reason why they did it is because I was urging them to get their documents taken care of in the first place, because she was widowed. The whole situation changed. My client is the one who's ultimately going to be responsible for managing the affairs of mom, because she's getting, she's almost 80 now, and she's, there could potentially be some capacity issues on the horizon. So it was me urging my client, hey, let's get your
documents.
Let's get them in order, because I took the IRA over when Dad died.
Well over half of my new clients, that's the subject. Did you get your will done? Here's the attorney referral.
Yep.
And a lot of these are young families with children that are minors. And, it's important to name a
Was it
guardian.
Pennsylvania? They're minors?
I was just referring to they were kids under the age of 18.
Yeah.
And finally, let's wrap this up with how we manage life events for our clients. That advisory fee covers it. Nobody really thinks about. For example, hey, we got a new baby. Maybe we need to start the 529 plan, something like that.
Simple.
I got married.
Yep.
Now we got to do some more tax.
How do we do joint finances?
Joint finances together.
Keith, what's a
Beneficiary designations now that you're married.
beneficiary designations now that you're married?
Now I'm divorced. Beneficiary designations.
Beneficiary designations.
Managing, the split of the assets, working with
and
the
if you have,
attorneys and so forth.
well, and one mistake I see is that if you get a divorce and you have minor children, a lot of times the parents are like, "Oh, I'm going to change the beneficiaries
To them.
No.
No.
Now it's time. Now it's time to do some trust planning, because you don't have that other surviving spurs. But not to get in the weeds on that.
Then you got divorce. Then you got death. So I help during that estate process. A lot of times we're doing some kind of probate work. We're not attorneys, but we can help guide them to alleviate some of that pain and what they have to go through. And, when to go to the courthouse, when not to, when do you need to solicit an attorney for probate process, when not to.
Yep.
Then inheritance is...
Inheritance.
How do you handle inheritance? Mm-hmm. How is it taxed, if at all? What type of accounts were they in? How do we divvy it up?
Funds, new planning. What terminal illness and cognitive impairments. I have 6 people right now in my practice that are either terminal or have cognitive impairments that we know how they're going to end.
So advisory fees, there's more than just managing money.
A little bit.
That it goes to just a little bit.
A little bit.
Hopefully, we went into length on what to look for and that we add value. How a financial advisor in general could add value.
I promise, if I build $250 to $300 an hour, which is what an average CFP bills, for the amount of phone calls and emails during the life event times, it would be significantly higher than just a percent AUM fee. Mm-hmm. However, there are some years when people don't need us at all. But when you do, there are some years when it could be 30, 40, 50 hours worth of work. And I'm not punching a clock. It just kind of works itself out if you have the right amount of households.
Okay, I think that's going to do it. We've been at it for a while. Thanks for listening and watching the podcast Unsolicited.
Keith, I think it was a good talk.
Good.
I think we actually added some value this time.
All right. Take care.
Hard work really does come and pay off. Every day working, we don't really need no days off. It was a struggle, but thank God that we stand tall. Now we pulling up, looking strong like we gonna brawl. They be lucky if they standing on 10 toes. They don't know how we roll, but they gonna know. One punch, little hook, that's a combo.
On a second thought, we only need for this move.
What you feeling?